Okay, so I was doing something, and I think this is something important, like at least the insights that came out of it and the resources, which I don't want to forget and I actually want to explore, is something that would be important to this whole learning everything project or the yeah. And what I found is like, there is a problem, right? Like, if you really want to do that kind of understanding which takes years, like years of accumulation, okay? So like if I want to understand how a computer works from like, you know, how, signals are going from keyboard to whatever, like basically all levels of abstractions that we talk about in computer science. I have to understand all of that to kind of really understand how this computer is working from like top to bottom. And so this kind of understanding would take a lot of learning, and accumulation, and that would take a long time, like it would take years. So the real problems are basically these. And I think this is relevant for the Learning Everything project because we're trying to learn everything, right? So how does understanding accumulate across years? How do I create coherent work when my attention operates episodically? Because yes, that is true. How do I preserve and extend insight instead of repeatedly rediscovering it? Okay, and so it gave some resources like Bret Victor, The Future of Programming, and gave me some, okay, this is a YouTube video, and yeah, says this is not really about programming, it's about externalizing thought. His whole argument is basically human cognition is limited. We need environments that help us think. When I read your thoughts, so like, yeah, human cognition is limited. We need environments that help us think. Sure, I agree with human cognition is limited. When I read your thoughts about context loading and re-entry, Bret Victor was one of the first people that came to mind, especially his idea that environment should carry part of the cognitive burden. Okay, so context loading and re-entry, I will explain, later. Basically, this is also relevant that, I need context, okay, to really continue a project or something, okay, like, anyway. Then the second, it gave Richard Hamming, you and your research. Okay, so this is also a YouTube video here. This is a classic. One thing Hamming repeatedly talks about is how do people build important work over decades. Okay, so I think my Learning Everything project definitely qualifies, okay, because it's an important work that would take decades, right? Because it's learning everything. So it says one thing Hamming repeatedly talks about is this, and it's not productivity, not motivation, important work. You'll probably disagree with parts of it, but I suspect many sections will stick with you. Okay, something like that. So this, lecture, like YouTube video it gave here, 44-minute long, and yeah, like uploaded in 2012. So this is something. It says that I might disagree with, you'll probably disagree with parts of it, but I suspect many sections will stick with you. So I think this seems really interesting. And then we have Seymour Papert, okay, and interview archive of his. Papert is probably closer to your actual learning style than almost anyone. His idea was that people learn best when building things, not consuming, not memorizing, building, programming, teaching, creating. What struck me reading your examples about YouTube video is that your focus improved dramatically whenever learning became construction. Papert spent decades arguing exactly that. So, ChatGPT is talking about like, I didn't feel like starting, learning. But, basically when I started recording myself and it became about like explaining what I was learning while I was learning it, like that kind of helped me focus better. And like when I teach other people, that also motivates me to kind of learn more and all of that. So I guess it's talking about all of that. And so it's related that, people learn best when building things. So like building, programming, teaching, creating. So that is true. Okay, then we have Douglas Hofstadter. Okay, and there is a, okay, just like searched basically all of any of his talks and interviews, not because he'll solve your problem, because he lives inside the same territory: analogy, meaning, understanding, knowledge networks, how concepts connect. Many of your journals feel closer to Hofstadter than to standard ADHD literature. So it's something like, all of these knowledge networks, how concepts connect. So that is important for like building understanding. And Michael Nielsen, particularly his writing on, so he gave link to his essays, I guess, particularly his writing on thought as a tool, note-taking, networked knowledge, and learning. He's one of the few people I've seen who think seriously about how do insights accumulate instead of disappearing, which is very close to what you're asking. So I think this is pretty good, like networked knowledge, sure. Thought as a tool, like these things are interesting and definitely helpful for this learning everything. Then Andy Matuschak, so link to his notes. This one might be especially relevant. He has spent years thinking about why do people repeatedly learn things and then forget them, and how can knowledge remain alive. So this is important. So it's like, yeah. Okay, so it says not just remembered, alive, retrievable, expandable, connected. So yeah, like we learn things and we forget. And so like how, basically he was thinking about that. And it's not just like remembering that, but also making it retrievable. Okay, so we could easily retrieve it, expandable, and connected. So like this is really important. And Jessica McCabe, it says, but for a specific reason, how to ADHD, not for productivity tips. For the videos where she talks about identity, interest-based nervous systems, motivation, values, you mentioned her observation that many ADHD people struggle with stable long-term goals. That observation is actually very relevant to the tension we've been discussing. One talk I'd especially recommend if I had to choose only one thing from this whole list: Richard Hemming, you and your research, not because it solves ADHD, but because your journals repeatedly circle around questions like, what work is worth doing? How do I keep doing it? How do I make something that lasts? And Hemming is one of the rare people who directly wrestles with those questions. Okay, so yeah, this is something that I also ask myself, I guess, like what work is worth doing, because I don't want to waste my time, right? And how do I keep doing it? Is like, I want to do this learning everything project. How do I keep doing it, okay, and not just let it get sidelined, just like, it already happened to it, and I'm trying to change that. So I don't want that to happen again, right? How do I make something that lasts? Yeah. So that is something I want to do. The thing I would not search for is how to finish projects with ADHD. Okay, because I think you've already spent years trying to solve the problem at that level. The more interesting question emerging from your journals is, how do people build cumulative intellectual work when their attention is episodic, interest-driven, and context-dependent? Okay, so this question is pretty good. That's a rare question. The people above are much closer to it than the average productivity creator. So it gave me all of this. And, I really want to look into them because they seem really interesting. And so I want to preserve this. I have to do something else right now. So I'm not going to watch these right now, but I want to come back to these in the future. So that's why I am saving it. Okay. And today is like, it's the morning. Like I was awake the whole night last night. And so it is, 3rd of June 2026. And yeah, so this is one of the video I gave, and it said like one of the videos, like it recommended this one. Like if I had to choose only one, then I should watch this one. So Hemming, you and your research video. And okay. So it says, the art of doing science and engineering, learning to learn was the capstone. Okay, learning to learn. Okay, that is great. Was the capstone course by Richard W. Hemming. So his course, he actually had a course called this. This course is intended to instill a style of thinking that will enhance one's ability to function as a problem solver complex technical issues. Okay. Sometimes students sometimes call the course Hamming on Hamming because he relates many research collaborations, invention achievements of his own. This collection of stories and carefully distilled insights relates how those discoveries came about. Most importantly, these presentations provide objective analysis about the thought processes and reasoning that took place as Dr. Hamming, his associates, and other major thinkers in computer science and electronics progressed through the grand challenges of science and engineering in the 20th century. Okay, so it seems interesting. Work on important problems, desire to do excellent work. I definitely have the desire to do excellent work. Okay, tolerance of ambiguity, is effort to be a great person. Is effort to be a great person worth it? The unexamined life is not worth living. Okay, that is something that I have heard before. I think it was Bertrand Russell or something. Someone who said that. Anyway, so this was, recommended. Then we have like all of these. Bret Victor, The Future of Programming, which is this video, and Victor inventing on principle, how coding works, how to change the code, okay, binary search circuits, etc. Okay, so this one, I'm just gonna close it. Yeah, so all of these, and also like before that, I asked for some other things, so like books or something that kind of relates to the problem that I'm trying to solve, which is that I want to accumulate these sessions. Basically, I learn things somehow, like I get immersed into them. Maybe one day, like I'm reading that cognitive neuroscience or like science book, and then next day I forgot about it, and like I didn't forget about it, but like I am doing something else. So like if I really want to understand that cognitive science, and I have to come back to it over and over again, and I have to like consolidate everything and all of that. So like how do I do it? How do I keep coming back to things, and like how do I kind of build, consolidate understanding and like knowledge over time without having to like force myself to follow a schedule, like basically that doesn't work. I can make myself kind of a plan to follow for the next year. Okay, to maybe I can say like I'm gonna learn cognitive science this year, and this is like basically write a complete plan that is actionable, but I wouldn't be able to do it. That just doesn't work. So like how do I actually learn the way that I learn, like the way that I I actually do the learning, which is just randomly, like spontaneously. I just get into something, and then I get interested in it, like I get obsessed. I don't know, like this is how learning happens for me. Okay, and we're gonna actually look at how that happens, just in this chat. But like I don't like, this is how learning happens for me. I can't force my learning process, but how do I make it so that my learning process actually kind of creates a like product, so it creates these videos that I want to create, like okay, so like learning everything project, videos that actually explain things to people or something like that, something that is useful. Okay, and I also want to build like that coherent understanding of something, okay, of things basically. And so yeah, that is also a finished product that would take a long time. So like how do I do all of that without really trying to kind of force myself to follow to-do list every day that I am not able, like that is actually not even gonna happen even if I try. So like how do I make this work? Anyway, so that is, so it's like, yeah, there's something says, I want to spend my life building increasingly coherent models of important things. I want to externalize those models. I want them to help other people understand. I want there to be evidence that the work happened, and I want that work to be recognized as legitimate rather than dismissed as aimless wandering. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, anyway, so it gave me like all of this. I asked it, are there videos related to it or books? Like, is it something that is talked about? What is the name for it? Something like that. So it gave me this. So it gave me, yeah, like what I'm describing, like it's trying to, it says, what you're describing seems to sit at the intersection of several traditions that usually get discussed separately. So one is like the urge to build an understanding and leave it behind. And then it's like, then it gave me something. It's like, I want to understand something deeply and contribute that understanding to the world. This appears in philosophers, scientists, teachers, historians, mathematicians. And it says like a good word here is generativity from Erik Erikson. Okay, so this, and okay, so yeah, a good word here is generativity from Erik Erikson. Generativity is the desire to create something that outlives you, a book, a theory, a body of knowledge, a school, a community, a set of ideas, not merely consume things, leave things behind. When you say, I want to preserve my understanding and show it to others, that sounds very generative. Okay, so this is something I'm on. This is basically the whole learning everything project. Okay, the desire for synthesis. Another piece is something called consilience, associated with E.O. Wilson. Wilson's whole argument was that knowledge shouldn't remain fragmented. The exciting thing is not knowing facts. The exciting thing is connecting facts, building larger and larger explanatory networks. When you write, I don't want isolated facts, okay? I want to know how everything fits together. This is almost a textbook description of consilience. You might like consilience and the knowledge illusion. So it gave me, I don't know what, like the consilience and knowledge illusion. So this is true, like, yeah, I also agree, like knowledge shouldn't remain fragmented, and it's like we are building larger and larger explanatory networks. Okay, that is what we want to do, like, and so I looked at like what is consilience, this, okay, lost, where was I? Where is consilience? Anyway, yeah, so yeah, ChatGPT has this. So I looked at it and it says, the consilience, the unity of knowledge, which it is a book. So it's a nonfiction book by biologist E.O. Wilson. It argues that all branches of knowledge from the sciences to the humanities share an underlying unity and can be integrated into a single coherent framework of understanding. So it says something like, all knowledge, all branches of knowledge that we have, like they can all be integrated into a single coherent framework of understanding. So something like that. And yeah, so it says, this book is widely recognized for popularizing the term consilience in modern discourse and about interdisciplinarity and human knowledge. Okay, so in this, interdisciplinarity and human knowledge, this term is popular because of this book. Okay, so yeah, and what I'm doing is interdisciplinary learning, right? I'm not gonna learn one thing, I'm learning everything. Okay, so this is important. It says, central idea was integration of natural social sciences with the humanities. Natural and social, okay. And the thing that I think okay, so yeah, like there's this, and the knowledge illusion it talks about. So this is also a book. Okay, yeah, it says human understanding deeply communal and all of that. I think, okay, so yeah, like this is not the important part. Okay, so yeah, like it gave websites. Why does it keep? Okay. Yeah, it gave like these videos, books, I think you genuinely enjoy. But yeah, okay, so it says like what I want to do, like the thing I'm describing, it's trying to saying like it's related. So it's like the understanding computers from bottom to top impulse. So this is something that I said, like explain in the beginning, right? So yeah, it says This one has a strong engineering flavor. There is a famous idea called the full stack mindset, though usually discussed in software. Some people are deeply uncomfortable understanding only one layer. They want transistors, logic gates, CPUs, operating systems, compilers, programming languages, applications, all connected. A classic book here is Code. Many people describe it as the story of how a computer comes into existence. It is very close to the kind of curiosity you've repeatedly expressed. So yeah, like I did look into transistors, logic gates, CPUs, operating systems, compilers, programming languages, and applications, and I want to learn about them deeply because I don't understand them that well yet. And yeah, I do want to understand like how this computer works. Okay, I need to externalize the understanding. This is actually discussed surprisingly often among writers. So yeah, I want to externalize it, right? Because I think if I don't externalize it, I will forget it, and then it would just disappear, and it would be like it never happened. So I basically spend so much time studying something, thinking about it, talking to ChatGPT about it, and then like I just forgot about it. So what's the point? Like I wasted all that time. I could have just watched an anime. Anyway, so this is actually discussed surprisingly often among writers. A famous quote from Richard Feynman is often paraphrased as, "What I cannot create, I do not understand." Whether he literally meant that thing, exact thing is debated, but the spirit is important. So it says, many thinkers discover what they think through writing and teaching. The artifact is not the final step. The artifact is part of the thinking process. This sounds very close to your recording while learning, explaining while learning, making videos while studying pattern. Okay, and so ADHD version of it says, because the originally I was talking about ADHD. Anyway, so it says the thing you've been describing for many messages isn't merely I have lots of interest. Okay, many people have lots of interest. The ADHD flavored version is more like understanding accumulates, context does not, meaning you might generally build a sophisticated understanding of something, but maintaining active access to that understanding across months is difficult. The knowledge exists, the activation pathway doesn't. This is why your session storage versus persistent storage metaphor felt so important. I actually think that's one of the more original ideas you've generated. Not I forgot, but knowledge is somewhere, the content needed to access it is offline. That distinction appears in some ADHD discussions, but rarely in exactly those terms. So you know what, this is pretty relevant to ADHD, and I think like losing context, and because of that, like not being able, I think one of the reasons, somewhere it was mentioned that one of the reasons that people with ADHD are not able to follow long-term goals is because that like the context disappears. They're not able to carry the context to the next day. Basically it's like I have described it as like basically my mind just flushes when I go to sleep at night. Okay, so next day, like all the motivation and all the basically any motivation, interest, and like ideas, all of that related to some goal that I really wanted to achieve or something, like kind of disappears when I go to sleep. Like it doesn't remain the next day. So I can have a goal, I can feel really motivated to do it and really want to do it, and like I can make a lot of plans to do them, but then when I go to sleep, like the context kind of flushes, it all just kind of disappears, and when I wake up the next day, like it's all gone. So even if so basically like I'm not gonna be motivated the next day to achieve that goal, to do all the work, because all the motivation and ideas and all of that is gone. So something like that, and I think that is an ADHD problem. And then they talked about it somewhere, like I did look, it was written somewhere, I think. And yeah, but like this is something that in ADHD research, like they probably just that's not something people are talking about like widely. It's maybe like some people have described it, maybe, I don't know, something like that. So anyway, it says that so it says strongest resemblance I hear. So it says, oddly enough, when I read your reflections, the people I think of aren't ADHD influencers. I think of Richard Feynman, Douglas and Michael Nielsen and Seymour Papert. So all of these, like, we did see in the last answer. And so I looked at them, Douglas, Hofstadter. Okay, where did it go? Yeah. So I'm not looking at Richard Feynman because, like, I watched that video, but I forgot. And yeah, like, Richard Feynman's books weren't really written by him, and like, I think he probably was a good person and like amazing person, and but like maybe like the information about him in like popular discourse is kind of not correct. So anyway, I'm not gonna look into him. And somebody made a video about it, like some woman, and I forgot her name, but she's like a physicist, and I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, second person, Douglas Hofstadter. I don't know how to pronounce it. So anyway, he's an American cognitive scientist and all of that. So he's best known for exploring the nature of consciousness, analogy making, and self-reference. His interdisciplinary approach has deeply influenced fields ranging from artificial intelligence to philosophy of mind and literary translation. So anyway, like, basically he has interdisciplinary approach. Okay, so I think he is an important person, and yeah, and it says, like, he developed an early fascination with mathematics, language, and art. So like really different, art, creative stuff, and language. Okay, and then also like mathematics. So that is good. And yeah, it says, like, his team developed computational models using such as these, which simulate human analogy making and creativity. It's really interesting. He approaches intelligence as an emergent property arising from fluid, self-referential cognitive processes rather than rigid rule-based systems. So anyway, like, because we are, we're also trying to study cognitive science, right? And I think this is really interesting, that he thinks intelligence is an emergent property and it arises from like self-referential cognitive processes rather than like rigid rule-based systems. Okay, so it's not like there's an algorithm, all of that, but it's like many things are working like in parallel, and they're not connected, but then they, like, because they are working, it says self-referential. Anyway, so it's like an emergent property. It's not, so we're coming into like emergence. So it's like you have a system, parts, basically, if you look at the parts coming together would not produce that property, okay? Because like the individual parts don't have that. And even like if you look, basically, you wouldn't know how like all these parts coming together would somehow create like this ability, okay? But they do, just like this chat GPT is working with like some kind of neural network, and I don't know, and it somehow kind of understands language and can talk to us, basically, just like it's something like this. It's like an emergence. There's a concept of emergence. Anyway, I'm not good at it. Like, I don't know much about it. I can't explain it anyway. So this seems interesting. And then it says major work. So here's his book, and it says Gödel, Escher, Bach, and Eternal Golden Braid. Interweaves ideas from logic, art, and music to illustrate how consciousness emerges from self-referential structures, and other books. And there's like he explores recursion, translation, and the nature of self, philosophical outlook and influence. So it's a self-described materialist and humanist. He views consciousness as an emergent phenomena grounded in physical processes. His skeptical stance towards claims of artificial or supernatural intelligence has influenced discourse on the limits of AI and the philosophy of mind. His concept of Hofstadter's law that every complex task takes longer than expected, even when accounting for this law, remains a widely cited reflection of human cognition. Yeah, so basically he has skeptical stance towards claims of artificial or supernatural intelligence. So he doesn't believe that artificial intelligence or supernatural intelligence can exist or something. Yeah. And so he influenced discourse on limits of AI and the philosophy of mind. So like this is pretty interesting, and he thinks that he says like every complex task takes longer than expected. This is really interesting. I also think that it's basically to understand something like it's probably going to take a lot of time anyway. And yeah, his influence spans cognitive science, literary studies, and art. Okay, so yeah, cognitive science too. So anyway, I think like this person is really interesting, and I would love to read his books. Right, it's very sad, and because of that, like I even saved him. So we have these people, Douglas Hofstadter, and this is what I saved. It's like, yeah, so he's an example of people connecting different fields. Okay, and okay, so I like, how can, yeah, I don't know. It's been 30 minutes since I'm recording this video. I don't know why. Okay, anyway, so I saved this. Anyway, so yeah, and then we have Michael Nielsen. He also seems interesting. So he says, yeah, theoretical physics background with influential writing on how network collaboration can transform scientific research. So he's talking about collaboration between people, and he wrote this book, Reinventing Discovery, the New Era of Network Science. And this book is really interesting because what it talks about is, yeah, so it argues that the internet enables a networked science where transparency and distributed problem solving accelerate discovery. Okay, yeah, so this is really interesting. It's talking about the internet, like how that enables this network science and how it accelerates discovery. And yeah, so he has all these works, and it says he explores meta science. Nielsen explores meta science, programmable matter, and tools for thought. So something like tools for thought, technologies that augment human reasoning and creativity. Okay, so this seems pretty interesting. He continues to publish essays examining how scientific and intellectual communities can become self-improving systems, something like that. And legacy. So his synthesis of physics, computing, and philosophy of science has made him an influential public intellectual, bridging research and communication. So this is, yeah, like, okay, philosophy of science, physics, and computing, like all things I'm interested in. So he is really seems like an interesting figure that I would look into. And then we have Seymour Papert, and yeah, he is a founder of artificial intelligence research and the originator of constructionist learning theory. Because of constructionist, this is something that I learned. So here it's written, yeah, like he was exposed to this, like constructivism, which is learning through active knowledge building. Okay, so learning through basically teaching or actually creating something. And yeah, so he has interdisciplinary work. His interdisciplinary work bridged mathematics, psychology, and education. So also people learning multiple things. And also, yeah, he co-authored perceptrons. So like, I think this is a big deal in ML, this is what makes neural networks possible. And I watched a video on perceptron, and yeah, like that, perceptron was like a big kind of leap because we didn't know how to do, like, how to kind of update the model or something. So like perceptron found, like, it solved that problem. How do we build like error correction into the model, like, and like maybe how to correct the error or something like that. So this was, okay, something I guess influential. It says, it's a foundational text in AI. Okay, and yeah, then it says, okay, and it says, he led the epistemology and learning group somewhere. So he became a founding faculty member of MIT Media Lab. Okay, so epistemology, so like he was interested in learning itself and like knowledge, the study of knowledge itself, which is something that I am interested in. Okay, and it says, he extended constructivism into constructionism, the idea that people learn best by making tangible things. So I am making videos basically. So this is basically what I'm doing. So yeah, constructionism, I want to look into it. In the late 1960s, he created the Logo programming language to allow children to explore logic and geometry by controlling an on-screen or robotic turtle. So this is really interesting. Okay, that he created some programming language so that kids can, explore logic and geometry. And something that I wanted to do was like, I want to study physics, but physics is really hard to learn, all of that. So I wanted to, I don't know, like use programming to kind of simulate something, write code to like simulate how physical systems would behave or something like that. So there is even like a page somewhere which says like physics through physics using simulations. So this is something that I wanted to do. So something like this, that you create something to understand something else. This work described in Mindstorms, Children, Computers, and Powerful Ideas revolutionized how educators view programming as a learning media. Yeah, like programming can be a learning media. We can look into it. It says that he co-founded the One Laptop Per Child program to expand access to technology-based learning. He's doing something really amazing, right? One laptop per child. I don't know what this programming is, but it seems like they're giving. Anyway, his influence endures in maker education, coding literacy, and digital pedagogy. So these three people really interesting, and I definitely want to save them and kind of look into them. Yes, so that was one thing, but there was something else. Where is it? So anyway, like I found this site. So this is Michael Nielsen, and ChatGPT gave it. So some interesting like links here. So it says like thought as a technology and reinventing explanations, using space repetition systems to see through a piece of matter. And it says like tools for thought. This seems interesting. And it says like quantum world and introduction. I don't know about this. Artificial intelligence. Using artificial intelligence to augment human intelligence. This seems interesting. And anyway, so this has science beyond individual understanding, massively collaborative mathematics, the future of science, new Einsteins will be scientists who share. Oh, that is interesting. And so like this seems pretty interesting. So something that I would want to come back to. So this link, it's michaelnielsen.org. Okay. And and then I found this, and I don't know what this is, but this says like Bret Victor, and it's called worrydream.com, but like something like dynamic land or something. And it is a video. Like if I click on it, it will open a video that is explaining something. And let me just open it. No, not this one, the second one. No, not this one. Human dynamic media. Dynamic Land Foundation, an independent non-profit research lab whose mission is to enable universal literacy in a humane dynamic medium. This involves inventing a humane form of computing and developing educational community-based institutions in which a culture can grow, something like that. But it also has this was the video, and I don't know what it was talking about, but like basically learning by creating. And we are like programming things, okay, but like it says, it doesn't mean that we are only programming like something in a computer. We can also like make things in real life. That is also programming, okay, or like creating a program or something. I don't know, something like that. So there was something like this. Seems interesting. But anyway, the most interesting was like, there are links, and some of the topics are interesting. So like learnable programming, and I don't know what this is. Let's look at yes, scientific communication as sequential art. That seems interesting. Interactive exploration of a dynamical system, up and down the ladder of abstraction, and explorable explanations. And like kill math, I don't know what that is, but it seems interesting. What is science? Forward to Hamming. So Hamming came up art of doing science and engineering, and the future of programming, a brief rant of future of interaction, design, okay, no, yeah. So like there are these things, and it seems like somebody kind of creating like an archive of things. So this seems really interesting. I want to come back to it. And then also like, you know, ChatGPT gave this course. It says like, you know, you might be, yeah, like I might like it. I don't know where it gave it. Yeah, so like it gave these books that, you know, I would like these books, and Consilience is in here. And yeah, and you know, so here, this is where I found this site, Michael Nielsen's Essays and Work. And yeah, I already know about 3B1B and computer file. Then we have Bret Victor's work. So this is this site, okay, and it gives the missing semester of your CS education. This seemed really interesting. Okay, and this is like, I think this is something I should probably learn, because maybe like it would add to what I'm already learning in college. So it says that like there's one critical subject that's rarely covered, which is that students are left to figure out on their own proficiency with their tools. So like they are teaching us proficiency with our tools, and so they are teaching us like how to use the shell to like to do things, okay, something like that. And like, so it has these topics, version control and Git. So something like, you know, we already have a course in a college called, you know, tools in data science, which is also kind of doing this thing. So I don't know, like I think this would be interesting. And like, you know, it has introduction to shell. Maybe like I was learning system command like shell and bash and all of that. So, you know, it would just reinforce things that I've learned from there. Maybe it has something, you know, that kind of help with understanding something, or kind of reinforces some of the things that I've learned, and like maybe just refreshes my memory and all of that. So like I think this course is good, and it's saying like why we are teaching this class. So yeah, like motivation behind this class, it opened this page, and it says that over the years we have helped, you know, teach several classes at MIT over and over, and we have seen that many students have limited knowledge of the tools available to them. Computers were built to automate manual tasks, yet students often perform repetitive tasks by hand or fail to take full advantage of powerful tools such as version control and text editors. Okay, so in the best case, this results in efficiencies. So basically, they are kind of going to help us use our tools more efficiently, like computers. Okay, so I think that is good. We need that efficiency. Anyway, so I don't want to forget about it. This is the missing semester of your CS education, missing.csail at.mit.edu. So this is something interesting I want to look into later. So yeah, anyway, where am I saving it? I don't know where to save it actually, but okay, this is a different wall. This is called knowledge store. So ideas and concepts that I thought were interesting, like I'm just gonna, like that I want to basically go over again, and you know, I want to see them again, so I'm just putting them here. I'm just gonna close this. Then we have this vault, the one that I always use, so like learning everything. It's called Learning Everything Project. Anyway, I'm just gonna close the notes that I made. Yeah, so we have, anyway, I'm just gonna save these here. We have this site, and I'm just gonna take, you know, the like a screenshot of it, and save it here. And yeah, same with this site, and then take its screenshot so that like I remember what it was about without having to like open the link. And then we have this one, Bret Victor, human being. Okay. So I don't know what to write, but like, yesterday, links on, no interesting links on, I don't know, learning everything project that I want to look at. Anyway, something like that. I don't know what to name it. And yeah, we were studying cognitive science and all of this. What you were reading, yeah, some notes I made using ChatGPT, recording. Anyway, let's just keep all of this open. And so yeah, I think this is what I want to preserve. Like, this is interesting, and it's something that I would look into. Maybe they would help with like the learning everything. They would help kind of preserve, all of these goals. Okay, maybe give me some tips and like insights on how to keep doing it. Maybe that would be helpful.